At 9:07 a.m. on Thursday, September 12th, 2024, I sat in a conference room on the 18th floor of Harrison and Cole in Chicago. The AC blew straight at the back of my neck. On the glossy wooden table, a cream-colored file sat in the center, held shut by a metal clip that looked cold even under the lights. The smell of stale coffee mixed with fresh printer paper. Ethan sat across from me in a navy suit, wearing the smile of a man who believed the outcome was already settled. Beside him sat his attorney, Miles Rourke, voice steady, eyes trained like he was staring at a target. On my side was Nora Jensen, my attorney, one hand on her notebook, saying nothing. Miles pushed the file toward me. "Sign to acknowledge receipt. If you agree, sign the last page as well," he said. I opened to the first page. The title was printed in bold: Postnuptial Agreement, Appendix A, Expected Assets and Future Benefits. The line beneath it read, "Including the inheritance rights from Claire Morgan's parents." Claire Morgan was me. I flip forward. Section 3.2. The wife acknowledges that financial success during the marriage is the result of joint effort. Future benefits arising from the wife's family shall be considered for division at a 50-50 ratio. Section 4.1. The husband has the right to participate in all decisions regarding management and allocation of expected assets. Clean language, dirty intent. I looked up. Ethan leaned in, like the pen was about to crawl into my hand on its own. "Just read it," he said. "It's only to keep things fair. I don't want misunderstandings later." Ethan's later was the day my parents died, while they were still healthy. He started talking like he was pitching a business plan. "Your parents have the house in Naperville and investment accounts. I just want us to plan, renovate the house, buy a new car, and I need capital for my project." I heard the word capital and remembered all the nights Ethan sat scrolling price lists for shiny tech toys and called it investing. He had plenty of projects, but they all had one thing in common: they always needed someone else's money. Nora slid a small note in front of me. 3 words: "Don't react." I didn't react. I just kept flipping pages and let Ethan think I was being guided. "You know what I contribute," Ethan said. "I meet investors. I stand in front of the camera. I bring the brand into the spotlight. Without me, the company wouldn't be where it is today." I let him finish, then let those words fall onto the table like dust. Everhart Skincare started in my studio apartment, back when I had to fold my dining table into a desk. I tested sample formulas in my kitchen, logged ratios, called suppliers myself, negotiated terms myself. I read our first retail contract line by line because I understood one wrong word could burn our profit to the ground. Ethan showed up most on launch day, smiling next to me on camera, then posting proud of what we built. He had a gift for turning me into we right on time. As Everhart grew, Ethan liked being the face more than any other role, and I stayed behind the scenes with contracts, production, quality control, and one habit I never quit: saving everything. Emails, file edit histories, invoices, transfers. Everything lived in a folder I named Proof. I didn't need drama. I needed documentation. My parents lived simply in the suburbs. They were healthy, drove themselves, handled their own expenses. They once told me, "You built your life yourself, so our money shouldn't be a plan." I heard them. I remembered. Ethan heard them and smiled. I turned to the last page of the post-nup. In the disclosure section, in tiny print, it said, "The wife confirms no trust or legal structure has been established without notification to the husband." A line like bait, waiting for me to admit what was true. I set the pen down. I closed the file. I'll review this carefully and respond through my attorney, I said. Ethan's smile thinned. Claire, don't make this difficult. This is family. It's just paperwork. Paperwork. Ethan always called whatever he wanted to take by a small word. Nora stood. We'll respond after review, she said. Ethan looked at me one more time. He still seemed confident, because he thought I'd choose peace and sign. He didn't know the fatal mistake had happened 2 years earlier, at a notary's office, when he was in a hurry, signed without reading, and put his name exactly where it locked every door he was trying to force open today. If you want to know how Ethan signed his own trap without even realizing it, subscribe now. In the next part, I open the proof folder, and his precious paperwork starts turning on him. Nothing changed overnight. It changed in a way that's hard to point to as one single event, like a crack in glass that starts as a thin line, and then one day you realize the whole surface is webbed. Everhart hit 7 figures in revenue in spring 2022. I remember clearly because that day I was still in the warehouse, fingers sticky with tape, slapping labels on boxes while Ethan was downtown Chicago taking celebration photos with a group of people he called potential investors. He texted me a selfie, whiskey glass, big grin, caption, "We made it." We. That word started getting used like a credit card. Ethan swiped it everywhere, on social media, at networking parties, in conversations with his friends. And at the same time, he started treating me like an employee inside our own marriage. At first, it was small. He switched cars. "It's just a lease," he said, like the word lease turned a brand new SUV into a humble decision. Then came the watch. Then came the dinners where the price of one appetizer matched the entire weekly marketing budget I had back in startup mode. I didn't argue. I asked one question lightly. "Which account did you use?" Ethan laughed, the laugh of a man who thinks confidence is evidence. "The joint account, obviously. Our money." Our money. But my work. I started noticing expenses Ethan didn't volunteer. Small transactions first, 149, 299, then bigger. A 3-day Vegas business trip, a suite, show tickets, bottle service. He still called it relationship building. I stayed quiet because I learned something building a business. The person who talks the most usually wants you to react, so they can turn the whole discussion into her emotions instead of my behavior. I didn't give Ethan that privilege. Instead, I opened a separate spreadsheet. No dramatic name, just household review. I downloaded statements every month, saved PDFs into the right year-to-month folders. I turned on version history for every company file. I changed every critical password with a password manager, and I set access by role, not by marriage. Ethan didn't notice because he didn't look at systems. He looked at image. By fall 2022, the shift showed itself clearly when he started redefining my role in front of other people. At a party with one of his friends, a woman asked, "What does Claire do?" Before I could answer, Ethan said, "She's support. I run things. Claire's good with details." Good with details. He said it like a compliment, but his tone stamped the story. I was backstage, he was the stage. I watched the ice clink in my glass and marked the moment as a line in the sand. Not because it hurt. Because it told me exactly which road Ethan had chosen. After that, his humiliations got more specific. He fired my operations assistant, Maya, who had been with me since day one, who knew every warehouse workflow, every inbound schedule, every small supplier issue. Ethan did it without asking me. A short email from his company account. "Thank you for your contributions. We've decided to restructure." Restructure. Sounds fancy, but the truth was Ethan wanted to cut anyone loyal to me. I called Ethan that night. He was on the couch, feet on the table, game console glowing. "You fired Maya?" I asked. Ethan didn't take his eyes off the screen. "Yeah, she's not a fit anymore. I'll hire someone new." "Who?" I asked. He hit pause and looked at me, and for the first time I saw pleasure in his eyes, like a kid showing off a prank before getting caught. "Brooke," he said. "She understands branding, and she'll help me." Brooke. I'd heard that name in a few of Ethan's business calls. I'd seen it on his calendar. Lunch, B. I didn't ask who B was because I didn't need to. I could see the pattern. I just nodded. "Okay." Ethan unpaused his game. He thought I'd swallowed the insult. In reality, I'd added another line to the proof folder. I texted Maya, not through the company. I asked her to forward every email tied to the firing decision, every instruction Ethan had sent, every access change Ethan requested. Maya sent everything that night. One email from Ethan read, "Remove Claire from approvals on vendor payments. I'll handle." Evidence number 1. He intentionally cut me out of financial control. From then on, I practiced silence is golden for real. I didn't speak, but everything I saw got saved in a way that could be placed on a courtroom table without me needing to perform a story. I reset the accounting system so every change had a log. I enabled two-factor authentication on bank accounts. I required vendors to accept payment changes only with my digital signature, not a husband signature. At home, I did one more thing. I created a separate email used only for legal documents. Every time Ethan sent anything, I forwarded it there. Every time he talked about your parents' assets, I logged date and time in a note, with context. What he said, where, and who was present. No emotions, just facts. And then, like every man who gets too confident, Ethan started talking louder. One night near the end of 2022, my parents video called. Ethan sat beside me and smiled warmly. "It's great you two are still so healthy, but Claire and I should plan ahead. Retirement funds, asset distribution, so there aren't complications later." My father laughed politely. My mother stayed quiet. I could hear the discomfort in her voice even while she remained polite. After the call, Ethan spoke like he was advising me. "You should tell your parents to plan. If they leave the house, we can sell it and invest. I have ideas." "We?" I asked. Ethan shrugged. "We're married." I looked at him, and in my mind, a door closed, softly, without a sound. That night, I opened an old file in the safe. The company formation documents, capital contribution minutes, bylaws, and a contract Ethan signed in June 2021, the day he begged me to put his name on things so it looks professional. That was my secret weapon. I hadn't used it. I didn't need to. But I knew it was there. And I knew Ethan never read the most important part. A small, dry clause, the kind confident people skip because they think it's just paperwork. I didn't. At 9:19 a.m. on Thursday, September 12, 2024, the 18th floor conference room at Harrison and Cole felt bone dry and cold. On the glossy table, Miles Rourke's cream file sat ready. A post-nup with Appendix A, expected assets and future benefits. Ethan sat across from me, confident the way a man gets when he's used the word "we" to collect rewards. He slid the pen toward me. I didn't take it. I closed the file. "Before we go any further," I said, "what is the basis for putting my parents' inheritance in here?" Ethan curled his lip. "Marriage should be fair." Miles stepped in, smooth lawyer voice. "Inheritance is usually separate property, but the parties can voluntarily agree to divide future benefits. If you sign, it's done. Nora Jensen only asked, "You just said voluntarily?" Miles gave a thin smile. "Yes." I opened my bag and placed a gray folder with blue tabs on the table. In the top corner, Lakefront Trust Company. Miles lifted the cover. "This is a trust," I said. "The Morgan Family Legacy Trust." Ethan laughed. "A trust? You think that blocks me? I'm your husband." I looked at Miles. "Read the excluded persons and the spendthrift provisions." Miles flipped to the tab I marked. His eyes tracked the lines, then stopped. "An irrevocable trust?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Irrevocable. The trustee is Lakefront Trust Company. I don't control it." Ethan definitely doesn't. Ethan crossed his arms. "Fine, I won't touch it directly. I'll just have the court force you to share the benefits. If you receive money, it becomes marital." I nodded. That sounds like someone who's never read the fine print. I pulled a red tab forward and slid a thin page onto the table. Ethan's signature sat at the bottom. Across the top, in all caps, "Spousal waiver and consent." Ethan's smile slowed. Miles bent to read, and his voice lost its sheen. "Ethan has waived his rights?" Miles asked. I spoke evenly. On June 14, 2021, Ethan signed a waiver of any and all rights to any of my assets held in trust, present or future, including inheritances, gifts, and distributions. He agreed not to claim, not to ask a court to reclassify, and not to interfere with distributions. Ethan snapped. "I don't remember signing that." Nora said, "He doesn't need to remember. He just needs the signature." Ethan turned on Miles, irritated. "That was when we signed the company paperwork. Claire said we needed it to look professional. I signed because I trusted my wife." I shrugged. "You signed because you didn't read." Miles flipped the attachments. "There's a no contest clause," he said. "Correct," I replied. "If Ethan or his representatives file any petition targeting the trust, he pays attorney's fees and damages under the indemnification clause." Ethan forced a laugh. "A trust is still just paper. It doesn't override marriage law." I placed another stack on the table, cover bearing the Everhart Skincare logo. "And this," I said, "the thing you call we." Title: Operating Agreement Amended, June 2021. Ethan laughed louder. "The company is marital property. My name is on it. You can't—" "Read Section 9.4. Nora cut in. Miles flipped to the highlighted page. He looked up, then at Ethan. "A mandatory buyback clause," Miles said. "If a member attempts to seize or claim rights to the other member's separate property, including assets in a trust, then the ownership interest is bought back at the original contribution value." Ethan blinked. Original contribution value was the number he always avoided saying out loud. Almost nothing. But Ethan still laughed, like he was clinging to the sound so he wouldn't have to hear the door slam. "It's just a small clause. I'll sue. I'll say I was forced to sign." "Your choice," I said. "But you're sitting here with exactly what you've always despised: fine print, clauses, and your own signature." Ethan looked at me, then at Miles's cream file, like he was searching for a way back into the original script. The smile was still there, but hollow. He still believed he had one last move. Miles set both palms on the table. "Ethan," he said, his tone changed, "this clause, if triggered, it forces a buyback of your interest at the original contribution value." Ethan let out a dry laugh. "So what? I own half the company." I opened the final tab in the Everhart folder. "No," I said. "You own 12%. Ethan's chair squeaked as he half sprung up. What? Nora pushed a notarized appendix toward Miles, dated June 14, 2021, signed by Ethan and me. Capital structure, she said. Ethan received 12% non-voting. Claire holds 88% and full decision authority. He signed. Ethan turned on me, face flushing. You said I was a co-founder. You were the guy in front of the camera, I said. Not the one who built the system. Miles swallowed and read the internal valuation page. Enterprise value is approximately $5.8 million. Ethan grabbed at the number. 12% is still... Section 9.4 doesn't use market value. Nora cut in. It uses original contribution value if you go after her separate property. I tapped the highlighted line. Your original contribution, I said, was $10,000. The room felt like someone sucked out the oxygen. Ethan blinked hard, fast. I set down bank statements and accounting reports. From November 2022 through July 2024, I said, you used the company card to spend $186,430 labeled client development. That includes Vegas, shopping, and dinners, where the only client was Brooke. Ethan opened his mouth to argue, but the sound of pages turning and Miles's pen scratching across his legal pad drowned him out. Ethan's confidence started flaking away, piece by piece, like paint scraping off a surface. Nora opened her laptop and turned the screen toward Miles. You requested to remove Claire from payment approvals, she said. Then you created a new vendor, BRK Consulting LLC. Miles narrowed his eyes. BRK? Brooke, I said. Single member company, 4 brand consulting invoices totaling $74,000, approved by Ethan, with no deliverables. Ethan whipped toward Miles. She did real work. I added another tab. Brooke's freelance contract, I said. Metadata shows it was created after the invoices were paid. Miles took off his glasses and rubbed his forehead. You're talking to me about document fraud. Nora nodded. And Ethan signed the trust waiver. If he pushes anyway, we'll file for injunctive relief related to assets, demand an independent audit, and pursue attorney's fees under indemnification. Ethan laughed in panic. You're threatening me? I met his eyes. I'm giving you options. Nora slid a white envelope toward Ethan. Settlement and resignation. You have 60 seconds, she said. Option 1, sign. You receive $10,000 for the buyback of your 12%. You sign your resignation. You sign a non-contact commitment regarding company staff. And you do not contest the trust. In return, we keep the BRK consulting file confidential and stop any escalation. She set her phone on the table and started a countdown timer. 60, 59. Option 2, Nora continued, is you don't sign. We file today, freeze your access, and send all documentation to audit. Miles will have to notify malpractice insurance and consider withdrawing representation. You lose the company. You lose your reputation. Ethan stared at the timer. 41. 40. He looked at Miles. Miles wouldn't look at Ethan anymore. Sign, he said quietly. You're my lawyer, Ethan hissed. And I'm trying to save you from a worse decision, Miles replied. Ethan swallowed. 18. 17. I didn't say anything else. I just sat there, hands on the proof folder, feeling the hard edge of paper under my fingertips. 6. 5. Ethan grabbed the pen. He signed. The signature shook, stretched, ugly. The timer hit 0 as Nora collected the signed copy. She sent a short message, and immediately Ethan's phone buzzed. A notification. His company email access had been revoked. A small sound, but enough to make it real. The door was locked. Ethan stood, trying to straighten his back. But when he walked to the door, that posture looked like a man who'd lost the one thing holding him up. He didn't turn around. And for the first time in years, Ethan had no sentence left that could turn me into we. Monday, November 18th, 2025, 7:32 a.m. I stood by the window in Everhart's new office, looking down at the Chicago River. It was cold, the glass fogged slightly from the temperature difference. Below, commuters pulled their coats tight and moved fast, like the city charged by the second. My desk no longer held chaotic startup piles. Everything was labeled legal, finance, ops. A small box held a hard encrypted USB labeled proof that I still kept, not because I lived in the past, but because I didn't forget the rule. The thing that protects you usually isn't the loudest voice in the room. It's the cleanest file on the table. After that 60-second meeting, Everhart didn't collapse the way Ethan had implied it would. It got lighter, like someone finally removed a lead weight from its ankle. The board was restructured in 1 week. Company banking access was reassigned in 1 day. Vendor contracts were reviewed over 1 month. I hired an independent auditor for one purpose: to close every back door Ethan tried to carve out. The results were clear without theatrics. Client development expenses were reclassified. The consulting invoices disappeared from the system like soap bubbles under hot water. And in every internal email, the word "we" started returning to its real meaning: team, process, responsibility. Not one man in front of a camera. And the trust? The Morgan Family Legacy Trust operated exactly as designed: quiet, emotionless, and giving no one the right to negotiate with marriage. My parents were still healthy. They still lived in the same old house, still planted flowers out front, still called me on weekends to ask, "Are you eating? Are you sleeping?" Not, "How are the stocks?" I didn't use that money for revenge. I used it for something Ethan never understood: boundaries. I set up a small scholarship fund in my parents' name for cosmetic chemistry students at a community college in Illinois. I also bought out part of a small distribution partner to stabilize the supply chain. Not X to show off, but Y, so no one could grab my throat again. That's the problem. And Ethan? 8 months after the signing, I heard his SUV was towed from a parking lot for missed payments. Not from mutual friends. We didn't have those anymore. But from our company's credit risk review when finance checked partner exposure. A name once attached to CEO was now attached to delinquency. Brooke vanished faster than any branding strategy she ever sold. She posted a long social media thread about a toxic relationship with a narcissist, then disabled comments. 1 week later, she went public with someone else. Photos in Miami, captioned, "New Beginnings." Ethan wasn't in the frame. Ethan wasn't a frame to lean on anymore. 14 months after the conference room, I saw Ethan in person for the first time. Not in court, not at a party. In the elevator lobby of my building on a drizzly afternoon at 5:18. Water streaked across the stone floor. I was waiting for the elevator, laptop bag in hand, listening to rain tap the glass canopy. The revolving door turned, and a man in a thin jacket walked in pulling a delivery cart. A baseball cap hid half his face. I recognized him before he looked up, because that walk used to be confident. Now it was hurried and low. Ethan saw me and froze for exactly 1 beat. His eyes flicked over the Everhart logo on my badge, then dropped to where my wedding ring no longer was. He swallowed. I'm just making a delivery," he said softly, like the lobby might fine him for speaking too loud. I glanced at the clipboard. "Which floor?" Ethan looked down. 19. "Floor 19 is my office," I said. "I'll sign for it." I signed. Clean, straight, no tremor, and handed the clipboard back. Ethan stood there, one hand gripping the cart. He wanted to say something. I saw his mouth open and close, but he didn't have any sentence strong enough to turn reality into a story. Not X as he was betrayed, but Y. He signed his own truth. The elevator arrived. I stepped inside. The doors closed and his face reflected in the polished metal. Pale, tired, and unfamiliar, like a different person. That was the cleanest kind of karma. No screaming required, no speech needed. Just time and paperwork. Don't argue with a greedy person, document them. It's not love that protects you, it's legal boundaries. The thing you don't read carefully will read you back on your worst day. If this felt like the sweet kind of justice, hit like, comment "Justice Served," and subscribe for more smart revenge stories like this.